Hello everyone, we are back with another video. So today I had to reinstall Windows on my computer, everything from scratch, and I was supposed to enable the AMD-V for the virtual machines that I use. So I've had a few people ask me earlier on how to properly set it up or configure, and I've seen a lot of articles as well on the same. So I just thought, why not to make this as a video just in case that helps. So let's get started. So the video is just to show you I have this virtual machine right here, and right now I don't have the AMD-V enabled. So just in case if I go ahead and enable it and start the virtual machine. So as you can see, this is gonna come up with an error. So which is actually means that it is not enabled or it's actually not working. And the reason being hyperV from Microsoft. So once you have the Windows installed, hyperV is what takes over. And for the AMD-V or the Intel VT-x, you don't really need hyperV, or if hyperV is enabled, they are not going to work together. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that hyperV is not working. So we need to make sure we disable it and we enable the AMD-V in my case. So if you're on an Intel, you would be looking for the Intel VT-x. So the first thing you need to make sure is that, of course, you have to go to your motherboard, you have to get to your BIOS and you need to make sure you enable the Intel VT-x or AMD-V. So in my case, I'm on an ASUS laptop and my laptop has SVC mentioned in the BIOS. So you can look for the relevant option in your case and you need to enable it at first. And afterwards, we need to make sure that we disable the Hyper-V completely. So there's been a little changes with Windows ever since the recent update came in. So I'll show you exactly how to get this working. So here, the first thing we need to do is we can go to system info and run this command here. And this should show us the status of the Hyper-V. So if we do this, yeah, my bad. So it should be system info, find str, and hyper. So once you do that, it's going to actually pull up. So as you can see, Hyper-V requirement says a hypervisor has been detected. So we don't really need this. So it should say disabled. So we need to make sure that this is completely disabled and it does not detect a hypervisor. So this is actually related to the Hyper-V, and that is the reason why we do not have this AMD-V working right now, even though we have it enabled on the BIOS. So now what we are going to do is, so the first step to fix this is that you can actually go and search for core isolation, and that will take you to the Microsoft security. So you need to make sure you disable this. And once you disable it, it'll prompt you to restart the device. Ignore it for a moment. So we'll restart once we are done with all this process. We have a few more to do before we can actually restart this device. So the next thing we can actually do is we need to make sure that we disable the hypervisor launch type. So to do that, you can follow this command that you might already be familiar with. So once you do this, so it will say the operation completed successfully. So once you disable that, the next thing we need to do is that we are looking for the regedit. So you need to open the regedit. And on the Registry Editor, what we are actually looking for is this path, which I'll mention as well. You can either copy paste or you can open manually, whatever is comfortable for you. And here, what we are looking for is EnableVirtualizationBasedSecurity. So this is the file that we are looking for. And once you open the file, and you need to make sure set the value to 0, so that it's not going to work. And once you do this, you can close the Registry Editor, and the next thing we need is the Group Policy Editor. So we need to open the Group Policy Editor. And what we are looking for is the administrative templates and system and DeviceGuard. It's essentially the same thing. So we have this turn on virtualization based security right here. So what we do is we can just go ahead and do disabled. So this should not be enabled. So we need to make sure this is disabled, and it always defaults to not configured. So you can just go ahead and like disable and just close this. So once we close this, the next thing we need to make sure is that we can go ahead and reboot the device. So the change, what I was mentioning earlier, was that there's this tool. There's actually a tool that Microsoft has. So the DeviceGuard and CurrentControlSet hardware readiness tool. So Microsoft has this, and I'll attach the link in the description of this video. So this is what we would need to do as the final step before we can go ahead and do it. So right now, what I'll do is to reboot. So I'm going to pause the recording here. I'll reboot and I'll continue. All right. So we are here after the reboot. So with the process, like before we continue, there's one thing that I actually forgot to mention in the first step of the video is that we need to make sure that we do not have any of the Hyper-V related features enabled. Since mine is like a fresh install, I don't have them enabled by default. But if you have them enabled by default, or if you manually did it for some reason, you need to make sure that you have these disabled. So the Hyper-V and the the virtual machine platform and hypervisor platform, just in case. So you would need all these disabled. And of course, like the hypervisor and AMD-V, they don't work together. So due to that, like WSL is not going to work properly as well. And the problem is going to be if you are someone who wants to enable this, but you want to use Docker as well, Docker is not going to work. So for that, what I'm doing right now is like I have an Ubuntu server as a virtual machine that is configured just for my Docker workflow. So what I do is like I fire it up and I connect it with from the terminal of my Windows, and I connect to that server, and that server is what manages my Docker. So if you want a video on how I do that, I can actually make another video on explaining how I usually do it. And also I'm looking for ways just to make sure that if I can actually use Docker along with the AMD-V. I had to prioritize AMD-V because the more I run are like virtual machines over Docker. So for projects and other stuff, when I use Docker, the current workflow over the Ubuntu server that I'm running as a virtual machine is more than enough for me, and it is pretty capable too. So from here, what we're going to do next is that we need to test again. So what we can actually do, just go back and system info again, find SDR, and look for Hyper. So it still says like Hyper-V requirement says like a hypervisor has been detected. So we still don't have it disabled, right? So we do not have it disabled just yet. So what we're going to need to do next is that I have this file downloaded. So it is called this one. So this is the file that you can actually download, and I'll attach the link to download this file. So what we are going to need to do here is that we need to be sure we are running the PowerShell as admin from this folder. So I had this already here. So what I'm going to need to do is I would do downloads, compressed. Yep. So we are on the file. Sweet. So now run the following command. So set execution policy unrestricted. Once you do that, the next thing we're going to need to do is we need to run the file, which is this one. So this is the PowerShell script. So we need to run this. And to do that, we can actually do this. And we need to use like space hyphen disable. As you can see, it just disabled Hyper-V. So now we need to reboot the machine to continue. So the settings is actually going to take change once we reboot the machine, and that is something I might not be able to screen record. So I'll attach an actual camera footage for this. So what it's going to do is that once you reboot the machine, it's going to prompt you. So essentially you need to press F3 key when it prompts you to do that. So I'm going to pause the video here and I'll attach the camera footage to it. And then once that is done, we'll get back and we'll continue on the screen recording again. Just as you can see, we are restarting the computer right now. And let's give it a moment for the machine to reboot. So once the reboot happens, it's going to straight up take you to the new screen where it's going to ask you to disable. So yep, there we go. So it's going to ask like, do you want to disable the credential guard? So press F3. So we're going to press the F3. Yep, and you can press any key. So now it's going to ask you disable virtualization based. So do the same and we are good there. So once the machine reboots, we should be good. So we are back from the reboot, and please be sure that once you reboot after doing this process, this will disable your PIN if you have a Windows PIN setup. So you would need to reset your PIN to get into Windows. So once you do that and get into Windows, and the next thing we can actually do is we can open the terminal and again go to System Info and run this command. So just as you can see, it doesn't say that a hypervisor has been detected anymore. So instead it say like VM monitor mode extension is yes. So now that we have a change in this, so what this means is that hyperV has completely been disabled. That's it. So the next thing we can actually do is we can just go to our virtual machine and edit this and make sure, okay, this is enabled here, and we can run the virtual machine. Just as you see, the virtual machine is started without a problem. So see, the virtual machine started working. And again, just to confirm, once we shut it down, we have the AMD-V enabled and working properly on this computer right now. So just to tell you before we wrap this up, is that once you have this working, the difference is going to be that Docker is no longer going to work. So just in case if you want to know how I run the Ubuntu server, feel free to drop a comment. So if you think the video did help you, please drop a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thank you. I'll see you in another one.